because a lot of people are lacking income. They don't have a spending problem. They have an income problem. And if your job is not giving you enough income for you to be able to live the lifestyle that you want, why not be able to learn something so you can go earn more money doing something else while you're still working 9 to 5 until you're able to make enough money to be able to fire your boss or to make up for the income that you're making right now. The sales world is uncapped. You're not capped at what you can make in sales. But a lot of people think they're not good at sales, but they're really good at selling themselves on not being good at sales. You get that?
Absolutely.
So we're all good salesmen,
right.
But we're selling the wrong thing to ourselves. Right? If you go out there and learn, and there's different ways where you can make money and earn money, not because we don't make money, we earn money by the amount of knowledge we bring to people. If you can learn it and you can earn it, you're doing your family a disservice by not you doing it. You're not living your full potential.
So look at here. So by the way, we're already recording. So, my man in the back can already say, hey, you know what? That's a good place to pick it up. But I say, you know what? Let's just fire it up from here. So I've got my man Sia in from good old sunny, I was going to say sunny Southern California, but you've since moved. Now you're in sunny Southern Florida, right?
That's right. That's right.
Which is not a bad place to be nowadays, right? So California doesn't seem to be doing too well, even though it's a beautiful place. We've always loved it. Vegas here, it's always been our neighbor, right? It was always like, let's go to California and get our action in there and the beaches and have some good times in Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange County. But now it's like, I don't know about that. But anywho, man, it's a pleasure to have you here, brother. I'm extremely grateful for this. And like you said, as always, Sia, the start of this show is a place where I like to understand, and I like to understand from the position of, hey, man, I'm going to go along on a walk with you, and the walk is going to take us down a journey of life where we're going to go back some years, and we're going to be buddies right next to each other, and I'm going to imagine that I'm next to you while you're going through this journey of life, and I'm going to be watching and looking and asking questions. So let's start it off with that, my friend. Take us back to that place in life and let us go on that journey together as I can walk alongside you, see what you're up to, how it went, what got you to this point that you're at in life today, and we take it from there, my man.
Awesome. So I'm an immigrant. I was born in Iran. Iran is a country, it's making headlines right now, not in a good way, but back in the 60s and 70s, Iran was a country where it's in Asia, but when you say Asia, people think you're Asian. Right. I don't look like I'm Asian, right? I look more like I'm Hispanic or Middle Eastern, so I'm from Iran. So Iran was a monarchy, a king and queen. It was run by the Pahlavi dynasty. Americans used to go to Iran as tourists. Frank Sinatra came there. He wanted to open up a casino down there. Elizabeth Taylor used to come down there. Kennedy. So it was a thriving country. And the king, some people say was good. Some people would say it's bad. But he ran the country, basically. It was a monarchy. So I grew up there. My dad was a news anchorman in Iran. So the government owned radio and TV. My dad used to work for it. He was the king's favorite news anchorman, which was good and it was bad. It had some perks. Before the revolution and after the revolution happened, he was on a blacklist to be executed. So when the revolution happened in 79 and Ayatollah Khomeini came in and changed the whole Middle East, because the Shah of Iran basically knew what he was doing in the Middle East, but he was a little bold. He was speaking a little bit against America and Great Britain because we had a lot of oil. We still do have a lot of oil. So he was talking about OPEC. He started OPEC, the oil producing countries. And so he was a little bold. So there was a revolution. The king was overthrown. He left the country. And my dad was on the execution list. So my parents, I remember one night they were packing a couple of suitcases. So I said, I was 8 years old. I'm like, oh, so where are we going? They're like, oh, we're going on a vacation. And in the middle of the night, it was like midnight. And I didn't know anything. You know, people don't go on vacations in the middle of the night, you know, especially with their family when there's a revolution happening. They were fleeing the country is what they were doing. Right. But so my dad was like, you know what? I mean, you have a kid, you have a child, right? Imagine you know that you're on a blacklist to be executed. and you take your family to the airport. My dad was like, you know what? We're either going to leave together or we're going to die together. That's just the way it is.
That's powerful. Yeah.
And so we went to the airport, and my mom and sister were taken to another section, and my dad was taken to another room, interrogated. 40 years after that, 30 years after that night, I thought to ask my dad what happened that day. And he said, 30 years, he remembered the guy's name, last name, ranking, everything they talked about in that room for 3 hours. And the guy just said, man, Mr. Sabetimani, seems like you don't know too much about the government and how things were run. You were just doing your job. It's a shame that your name is on this list, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you leave. And so I'm going to let you out of this door. If your wallet happens to fall out of your back pocket, don't stop to pick it up. Just keep walking, right? Wow. So we left and got on an airplane, got to go to Germany, stayed there for about 6 months until we got political asylum, and came to the greatest country on earth, Manny.
Wow.
The United States of America, And it's unfortunate when I talk to people nowadays where they don't like America, and I tell them, you know what? I'll be more than happy to send you a one-way ticket to Iran, Afghanistan, Venezuela, Cuba, wherever you want to go, you think is great.
Correct.
Just go live there for a while and then come over here and see what we have. And then you will be grateful and you'll be blessed.
That's right.
So that's my story. Got to Southern California, grew up there. My dad, because he only knew how to do one thing, which was broadcasting. My cousins told him to go open up a cleaners. You'll be able to open up in 6-7 years. You'll save some money. You'll open up your own business. He said, I don't like doing my own laundry. Why would I want to wash somebody else's clothes? That's just not for me. Yeah. Then they said, go paint homes. And nothing wrong with hard labor and making good money. I mean, an honest day's pay is all good. But he said, I'm too pretty. My dad was really handsome. Green eyes, sexy voice, dark skin. He said, if America is the land of all opportunities, I want to chase my goals and dreams.
Yeah.
I want to get into broadcasting again. I want to do what I know how to do.
Yep.
So he went and found a radio station in Southern California, subleased an hour of their time, went to mom and pop stores because there's a lot of Iranians that moved from Iran to the Southern California area and got advertisement from them. He started his own radio program. Obviously, there was no internet for him to start a podcast. It would have been a lot less expensive for him.
Right.
But he went and did that. He got his commercials. He had content, interviews, news, all that stuff. Did that for a while. And my mom, it took about 2 to 3 years for my dad to make good money. And my mom noticed that we needed to eat, so she went and got a job, right? So she went and worked at a deli for the morning period when she would drop me and my sister off and then pick us up at 3. Then she'd take us back home, drop us off, and then she'd go to her second job, sometimes her third job, right? So I got my work ethic from my mom, my entrepreneurial spirit through my dad.
Interesting. Right? Very, very.
And I tried to follow my dad's footsteps, although I don't have his green eyes and I'm not as sexy as he is, and I don't have the voice. I got into broadcasting, but I got into the back end of broadcasting, like, setting up mics, recording, all that stuff, editing. I was a director for one of his shows that he had on a satellite TV station. Did that for a while, climbed the corporate ladder working at a radio station in Southern California. It was great. Don't get me wrong. I had a great time. But at one point in my life, I noticed that, man, there's got to be something more than just collecting a paycheck.
Sure.
I was working hourly. So I was doing a lot of overtime and I was getting paid well for it. And then the salary job came and I thought, man, my boss has got the life, I want his paycheck, not knowing how much it was. Until they gave it to me, and I was like, man, I want the hourly job again, right? Because it's like set. So anyway, I digress. But it was good. Don't get me wrong. I worked there for a while, but I hit a glass ceiling. There was no room to grow. Got married, 2 kids. I was blessed with 2 children, and I needed to make more money. And my brother-in-law came over one day, and he said, "Sia, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching a basketball game." He said, "You should be doing something else." I said, I have a job. I'm doing pretty good for myself. I'm making $50,000, $60,000 a year. I'm doing pretty good, Pat. I'm good, right? He goes, compared to who? I said, compared to my 5 friends, I'm the one that's making the most money. I'm doing pretty good. He said, your friends are in the financial situation that they're in right now because of you. Because you have capped them out at $50,000. He said, do you make that in a month or do you make that in a year? I was like, Who makes that in a month?
Right.
I've never heard of anyone make that kind of money. He said, well, there's an industry where you can get into and get involved in and get started in where you can make as much money as you want.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, did I tell you I have a job? He's like, yeah, 9 to 5 will get you by in life. It's what you do after 5 that will get you ahead in life.
Wow.
Said your parents sacrificed so much for you to come to this great country, not for you to get a job, pay some bills, and then die. You were meant to do something great. And you know, Manny, we are all built to do something great in our lives.
Absolutely, man.
But sometimes we get caught up in the rat race and we keep chasing that cheese and it's just not enough. And then 10, 20 years goes by and we're like, man, could I have done something more? Should I have looked into something else? And sometimes people don't have the people in their corner to be able to push them to go through the tough times in life for them to get to their greatness, because everybody has greatness within them. I believe, I mean, we're all made in the image of God, and I'm not too religious, but I believe in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it because I'm in the greatest country on earth where I can have the platform or to be able to say what I want to say. So far, we still have the freedom of speech going for us right now, right?
Yep.
So we're still able to speak about it openly. They're trying to take that away from us, but you gotta put up the good fight, because we're one generation away from losing our freedoms here in America. And then, you know, like I said, I got started. Then I got started in the company, and I started climbing with my wife. My wife is big in this industry where I'm at with our company, and we just grew, and we just kept teaching other people how to do the business and help them grow. They say, if you want to get to your goals and dreams, help others get to their goals and dreams first. So I'm a kingmaker, man. I don't want to be the king. My wife doesn't want to be the queen. We just want to have a lot of kings and queens on our side for us to be able to develop. So in 2020, what happened was I got a raise at my radio station job. In 2010, I got started in this industry that I'm in right now with my wife. And in 2020, I got a raise. So I was doing this part-time, spare time. And 2020, they gave me a raise, and they said, you know what? If we give you this raise, you're probably not going to see another raise for another 3 to 4 years. And I was like, wow, this must be a really big raise. I'm excited. Let's talk. They're like, well, you know, not everybody's getting this raise, and we want to show you what it is. I was fired up, man. I was like, show me that raise, man. Show me the money. They sat me down. They said, Sia, you know what? We're going to give you a 3% raise. I'm like, what? 3%?
Right.
Like inflation's at 6% at that time. You know, right now it's a little bit higher than that, like 9. I want to say it's 10, 11%. And I was like, you expect me to do cartwheels here for 3%? I said, I don't want it. And take it back. And my manager was like, bro, you're going to get fired. Are you kidding me? I said, I don't care.
Yeah, right.
So he went and talked to the big boss, came back, and he said, Sia, they're pissed, man. They want to meet you. They want to talk to you face to face. I was like, great. I packed up my stuff. Thought it was my last day. I walked in. They said, what do you want? I said, man, you're insulting me with 3%. Honestly, you know, I wouldn't take it. So they said, what do you want? I said, I want a 20% raise. And they laughed at me basically for a little bit. They chuckled. Then they said, you know, no one gets a 20% raise here. So what we'll do is we'll meet you halfway. We'll give you a 10% raise. All right, cool. I'll take it. And then what happened in March of 2020? COVID hit.
That's right.
So now I got a letter from management saying, I still have that letter. You know, it's funny, Manny. My brother-in-law, Patrick Bet-David, he always brings out documents. He's like, man, I was in $59,000 of debt. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, look, this is it.
This is the document.
My credit score was this, you know. So I'm starting to. I've kept a lot of stuff that were in my life that were in the negative. So now when I'm in the positive, I can show it to someone else and say, look, I was in the same situation you were in, and I was able to dig myself out. So can you, if you have the desire and the willingness to work. So they gave me this paper, and I have it. It said, due to the uncertainty of the world, all managers need to take a 10% pay cut. I just got a 10% raise. Then they took it back. And then they said, you know, that 401k that we kept, you know, matching you, we stopped that too. So I was like, man, you know, this is kind of crazy. And then in July of 2020, I got sick. I stayed home for 2 weeks, right? On the 7th, I was like, you know what? let me look at my phone. I looked at my app and I'm like, wow, our company pays us every 2 weeks. And I'm like, man, I called Paulette, my wife. I'm like, I was upstairs. She was downstairs. I called her. I'm like, babe, this app says we made $7,000. What is this about? She's like, well, we have a business we're doing with our company. We're teaching people how to do the business and all that stuff. And yeah, we made $7,000 right now. I said, well, I haven't worked. I haven't done anything. She's like, yeah, I'm doing everything in the background. Imagine if you were full time with me and we were running this business together, we could make like a lot more money. I'm like, if I buckle down and give everything to my business with my wife, I'll be able to make 30 grand in a month. She said, yeah, we'll be able to do that. I said, so why am I going to work? She's like, I thought you liked going to work. I said, I hate going to work. I gotta drive an hour and a half in traffic to get to work, an hour and a half to get back. And I work with a bunch of people. Some of them I like, some of them I really don't like. And what am I doing that for? She said, well, it's your call. So I made the call. I called my boss. I said, you know what? I'm quitting. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. He said, okay. Just like that.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, let me throw you some more money. Let me beg you to stay. They're like, okay, no problem. Because, when companies are hurting, what happens, Manny? They get rid of the top people. They don't get rid of the small people that are getting the hourly. They cut the hours a little bit, but they get rid of people in the management. And I wasn't making that much money. So I walked away in August of 2020. And, I can say, you said in the beginning, I lived in Southern California. I lived there for over 40 years in Southern California. It was great. Don't get me wrong. But then when COVID hit and Gavin Newsom came and I was able to move my family from communist California to Freedom, Florida,
That's nice.
where I am right now. And my business didn't skip a beat because I have offices nationwide and I'm doing my own thing. I'm blessed, Right. I have good people in my corner and just enjoying living in America with the freedoms that I have because I've seen people come and promise things to people to give them free food, free housing, free gas, all the free. Every time someone says they're going to give you something for free, there's got to be a catch somewhere, So I've seen it all. So that's my story. And I'm, like I said, I got 2 kids. I'm blessed. And now I'm South Florida, man. I live in Fort Lauderdale, living it.
Phenomenal compounding of a life story there, man. I always enjoy that part because it starts to give texture to the human being. And, again, there's always so much to unpack there. I think the reason why you're having more success and you've made this work the same way that you reached out to me one day is you're not afraid to go out there and put the opportunity in front of people, which is where a lot of people oddly get stuck. And they say, for whatever internal reasons that guard them or create friction, you reached out and started the conversation with me. And I was like, let's talk, man. Like I respect that. And look, here we are as developing a relationship, friendship, and I see why there's pieces of who you are that add up to more of your what will be a continuum of success. Now, I do want to placehold the entrepreneurial spirit and journey and story and how all of that is working and go backwards to what you said about being born in Iran and having that point where your father was on the execution list. And I don't know if you were aware of that. It sounds like he didn't make you aware of that until later down the road. But now that you're in hindsight, meaning now that you've lived life and you look back and now you have the ability to piece things together from then moving forward, I'm curious, what has that brought of you in terms of what did you learn about what was really shaping you as a young man that would then become the teenager, that then become the next version of yourself in your 20s and 30s? How did all of that summarize itself based on what you looked back on to say, hey, wow, you know what? It was a wild time over there and my father was this way or my mom was that way. How did all of that calculate up so that you realize like that's who you were becoming or that's not what it was or this is what there's a lot of different scenarios. I can look back on my life and say, wow, I realized that I was in a car wreck at 5 years old and it darn near killed me. And because it almost killed me, I went to the white space and it raised a level of awareness in my life that I've got to live now and do things now. Okay, at the same time, see, that event for me at 5 years old darn near killed me, and it terrified me. So now I have like this weird, I joke, but PTSD, where I always see cars coming and crashing into me because it was a real event. So I have to overcome that. In your case, I'm curious how that all plays out for you when you look back in that time frame of life.
It's amazing because my dad went from being on top of the world in Iran, being very famous, being a celebrity, you know, like right even now, I have older ladies come and say, "Oh, your dad, Sabetimani Nureddin. Oh my God, I used to have a crush on him. Like he'd have like 16-year-olds watching the news. My dad does the news, and the late girls would be sitting there. And before people knew much about technology and how everything worked, they would like look to see if he's wearing, what's he wearing? What is it, a suit or is it just a jacket? Looking inside the TV, thinking they can see inside. So I get that right now, where people are coming to me and talking to me about my dad. So he came from being very famous, and then when the revolution happened, my dad was in hiding for a couple of days in the house because we knew that he was on this list. I
Right.
remember he started doing projects around the house. My dad was never around the house.
Right.
He was at the TV station, or he was at the radio station, or doing other things, appearances. But now he's in the house, like he's painting, and he wants to go find paint. I remember one day we went. There was a play that it's ironic. The play, I'm trying to think of how to say it in English. Shahr Qisseh. So it's the story of a town. So a town, and it's ironic because this was back in the, I want to say, early 70s.
Okay.
This one guy, his last name is Mofid. He started writing this play about these animals that came and ran this city, and all of a sudden the mullahs came and took over. So he was a forward thinker, and this started becoming an underground skit on cassettes. You remember cassettes,
Sure.
right?
Hey man, I ain't that old, man. Or should I say young? I've got some old school, new school to me, brother. I'm an '86 guy.
Okay, awesome. So the cassette. So I heard about this cassette, and my dad, we went to looking for it, and it was like it became like a hunt for us to go find this thing so we can listen to the whole thing that I wanted to hear. And I remember we went to different stores and different cassette record stores and stuff to try to find this. And we went to one place, and then while we were in there, another guy came in and said, "Hey, you need to leave," because he recognized my dad. My dad had grown a beard, trying to fit in. The guy came and said, "Hey, you need to leave." And my dad's like, "Oh, snap." So I remember running with my dad in the middle of the street, catching a taxi, going to the house and staying in the house and being paranoid. My dad was paranoid at that time because someone had recognized him. So we went into the house, and then there was like these little cars that were going up and down the street trying to find my dad. So that paranoia, I mean, I love fame, but I don't like fame. Like I'm afraid of being too famous, I guess, for some reason, because I saw my dad be very famous and then having to hide. Hopefully there'll never be a revolution in this country that I have to be worried about that. But I saw that happening to my dad, and then coming to America, for him starting from scratch, man. I mean, I was worried when I was moving from California to South Florida. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna move to another state. This is gonna be hard. And then I sat down with my wife, and she's like, "See, our parents came from another country to America, didn't speak a word of English, and you're moving from California to Florida, and you're worried? Like, seriously, what do you got to worry about, right?" So from seeing that happen to my dad moving to America, and then me having to move to South Florida, that was like, okay, that comparison was like, you're not doing anything big. You're just moving from one state to another, and they move from another country, not knowing anyone, not knowing anything. So that has made me aware of my blessings, to know what I have and to be appreciative of what I have, because you never know when the good Lord is going to call you up. They say there's two dates that are very significant in people's lives. It's on their tombstone. It's their birth date and their death date. But then that dash is a significant thing that stands on that, because that dash is what you did in between those years. So I try to make the best of what I have, man. I mean, I'm grateful for being in this country. I'm grateful to have my health. to have a wonderful partner, my wife, beautiful children, and healthy, smarter than me, which is awesome. They're learning what I needed to learn at their age, at the right time in their life.
Yep.
And it's only because of the experiences that my parents went through and I went through that I'm able to teach them what not to do so they can avoid the mistakes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. No,
I know I went all over the place, but it's
listen,
just
the answers are the answers. There's no right or wrong answer in this environment, which makes it a beautiful conversation, right? I did get a chance to meet your kids recently when you were here in Vegas, and there was just this gentleness to them, this calmness and this poise. And I was like, man, these kids are great, you know, and I just met them for, you know, a few minutes, but you had that spirit revolving around them that was like, they're doing some right things, kind, gentle, you know, acknowledging, you know, wanted to greet and smiling. And I'm like, man, that's really cool. I'm very curious about that because obviously, like you said a few minutes ago, we just had a baby and I've got a lot ahead of me, right, as a father. And, you know, you had would you consider your dad your hero because he was who he was at that stage of life and everything that he did? Is he that figure to you?
Definitely. So my dad, he was my hero. He was my best friend.
Okay.
When I turned 16 and got a driver's license, I started working with him. I started cutting videos, you know, editing 3/4 inch videos and started doing lighting, doing production for him. So I was working with him. So I became his friend. We became really close. And I grew up with him in the work environment. I had a job at a radio station, but I was working with my dad mostly with his TV and radio as well. So he was my hero. I mean, and it's funny because when I talk about people in your circle and in your corner, there's a big difference. And I'm sure you know, Manny, the difference between someone in your circle and someone in your corner. You know, and I explain it to people. I say, look, the people in your circle, and I tell my kids all the time, I say, friends are in your life for a reason and for a season. They're there to teach you things. Now, some friends will stay for a long time, but some will come and go. But you got to learn because every man is not your enemy. He's your teacher. You're learning from everyone, right? So the bucket theory, I say people in your circle is like this. And it's funny because rappers are talking about it, and it's awesome to see people like that talking about it. You know, like Snoop Dogg says, there's a gap, and the gap grows between you when you become successful. The people in your circle don't want you to leave that circle because if you leave it, they'll say, "Oh, you forgot about us. What about us? Now you're too good. You know, now you're making money. Oh, now you think you made it. You're big time now. You're a big shot." They want to keep you down. It's the crab theory. You put a bunch of crabs in a bucket. One tries to climb out, the other one pulls it down, right?
That's right.
And then you got people in your corner. That's your coach. Because in a boxing ring, the people in the corner are the coaches.
That's right.
They know you're going to go out there. They know you're going to get your nose bloody. They know they're going to get punched, but they still pour into you and they tell you it's okay. Duck, do this, do that, and they push you. The person in my corner when I got into the industry that I'm in right now was my dad. My dad was like, go do it. Try it. What do you got to lose? Go get your license.
Yeah, man.
I said, Dad, when I got started in 2010 in the industry. And I said, Dad, in 3 years, I'm going to become a broker in this industry. He said, okay, go do it. Every event, like you attended the event we had in Vegas, every 6 months we have an event. Every event that we had, my dad would buy 4 tickets to come. Oh, man. He'd bring my mom, my sister, her sister, and someone else, and himself. They'd come. They'd always come. He was always there to cheer for me and push me to go ahead. Yeah, he was my hero. And so what happened is in April of 2012, my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer and stage 4. And in September of 2012, he passed away.
Wow.
So, and in July of 2012, my wife and I hit our marketing director promotion that I promised my dad that I would do within 3 years. We did it in 2. And then I was able to go over there and tell him, you know, he couldn't walk, he couldn't talk at that stage because, you know, your frontal lobe, you got glioblastoma, which is horrible. It's like intertwined cancer in the brain. There wasn't nothing we can do. And he couldn't talk, he couldn't walk. And I just showed him the plaque. I said, Dad, we did it, you know? And he just cried one tear. That was like,
man, that was everything.
that was worth a
Yeah, yeah,
thousand words,
yeah,
man. And
yeah,
I knew, man, he was happy for me, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And when he passed away, that's when, that's when my passion for what I was doing in the radio died.
Yeah.
After that, it was just a job.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was like, whatever. Because my dad would come to the station, we'd record the news, we talk, we chit chat, we have a good time. And so when he passed, it was like, man, I'm done. That phase of my life was over. And I need to, and I noted, and I realized that I needed to go chase my dreams
Mm,
because that's what my dad wanted me to do.
that's
So
incredible.
that's why I went full time with the company that I'm working with. So he was definitely my hero.
I
Definitely.
have the goosebumps. So many similarities between what you just said with your father and with what my father is and still is to me this, this in this life where
Amen.
when I owned restaurants in my mid 20s here in Vegas, 3 of them, and I was an entrepreneur and I was trying things and I would fail. And then every time I would fail, Pops would be right back there and saying the same thing. Hey man, it's all right. Get back up. Let's go again. And he didn't know anything about any business, nothing. He was in fact the complete opposite, right? But dad believed and dad was there for me. And he always was like, it's all right, kid, let's get back up, go again. Supported me during my
Yeah.
baseball time when I played baseball through college and just had my back in everything and didn't have the resources. And our mom, so I say our mom, my mom passed away when I was very young. So she passed away from cancer when I was only 10 years old. She was out of my life from a very young age. And so that point of, I understand the loss, but I also realize like there is a time frame in which you can appreciate the things that you were able to do with your father. Like some of those things are tragic in nature. My mom died at a young age, 32 years old from cancer, right? And I was like, man, I didn't even have a chance to spend time with her. What a schmuck I would be if I had got my life back on track and I didn't do something with it because she didn't get a second chance, right? So there's always these emotional tugs and connections to that whole premise that you just shared there. So it's a bonding moment for you and I, man. I can understand what you mean by that and where you're coming from. In addition to that, what you just said there with the circle and the corner, I think that's a fascinating point of view. I really like that. I think an example looks like your circle. Evidence of that is high school, right? Or even elementary school, middle school. You have these really tight friends and then you go to a different school. They're no longer a part of it. High school, you have your best friend. You go away to college. You talk a little bit in college, but then you're in a different world. And then you realize you only have maybe one that glues, right? You have one that maybe lasts a long time. And then over a lifetime, you end up realizing you have new friends that come in. So it's great to find the ones that are in your corner, my man. I can severely respect that point of view, and I think that's fantastic. On the same thread there, I heard you say something in there where it was like, your dad said, hey, go do it, go chase the dream. I'm there for you. How did you transform from being, what one would say the mindset of a worker or a guy that just goes in and accepts that he's a $50,000, $60,000 a year guy to I have to recreate and become somebody different. I have to transform who I am to start looking at the world a different way. And if that is the case, because we know it did happen, what were you afraid of? What worried you about changing your identity and who you were? Was there some things that you just thought that you were or that you assumed that that's who you were forever going to be? I'm very curious how you navigated that transformation there.
Yeah, for a long time in my life, I always told people, man, if I was just a fly on the wall, if I was a fly in that wall in that room just to see what's going on, I don't want to like. That's why I said like I'm afraid of being famous, right?
Mm,
But that's an insecurity that I have
interesting.
because I thought I wasn't good enough and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I can do it. But that was just my limiting belief. It's
Sure.
amazing what these little 6 inches between our two ears can have us believing,
I
right?
know. Absolutely.
And so until I started to have a mentor, so I got started in the industry, and I started reading books. I read a couple of books here and there, and I started believing in myself, and I started understanding the business that I'm in, and I started really believing into the businesses as well because it's not all about money. I mean, money is good. I get it, and don't get me wrong, money is important. It's like up there with oxygen. The more you have, the better lifestyle you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, money just makes you who you really are, more of who you really are. So if you're a good person and you have a lot of money, you'll do a lot of good. If you're a bad person, you do a lot of bad. But I was just insecure. and I didn't know if I can do this. And I found a mentor in my life. My brother-in-law introduced me, Patrick Bet David introduced me to a guy in the business by the name of Jose Gaitan. And his wife said, you know what, Sia, I want you to be an MC. I want you to, when we do a presentation, I want you to come and tell them and bring up Jose. And I'm like, wow, I could never do that. Like, I could never do that. Like, I couldn't make a phone call, okay? But it's just like practice. I did a training the other day about practice, and you talk about practice. It's just
come
practice,
on, Allen
right?
Iverson. You talking about Iverson? Right? Come on, man. Let's go.
Yeah, are we talking about practice? I'm like, yes. Yeah. Practice is important, man. So I had to get in the reps to be able to make the phone calls, to be able to speak in front of people, to have the confidence, to control my perspiration. Because the lady told me, Marlene told me, she said, hey, see, I want you to do the presentations, bring me up or bring my husband up in 2 weeks. I told my wife, I said, Paulette, she's gonna forget about it. She's not, I'm not gonna learn the script. I'm not gonna do that. She goes, you better learn it. I said, you know what? Whatever. 2 weeks goes by. She goes, so Sia, are you ready? Let's do it. I'm like, you were serious about that? She goes, yeah. Let's do it. I'm like, no, I'm not ready. Give me another 2 weeks, right? So I learned the script, and then I was perspiring and sweating, but then I got better at it, and I got more confident, and I built up this confidence, being secure in myself and what I say, and I was able to say, you know what, I can teach this to other people. I can make a phone call. I can remember this script. I remember I called my cousin on the script, and he was like, man, are you reading something? I'm like, yeah, is it that bad? But you know what? Now it's repetition, So it's just repetition of doing things. And I had to get used to learning something new. And
amen.
Forget about what I did in the past. That's my past. What I want to do in my future requires a new version of myself. So I have to shed that skin of mine and put it away and say, you know what? I'm not the shy guy. I don't want to be just behind the scenes. I want to be in front now, and I want to be the leader, and I want to teach other people what I have learned. And trust me, I haven't learned much, but because if you're not learning, you're dying. I'm always learning. I'm always want to learn something, and I wanted to teach it to a newer guy. So if I teach it to my son, and he knows how to go out there and talk to people, like how I met you, which was prospecting you on Instagram. If I can teach someone how to go out there and prospect someone in the street, like my son does, and he goes and prospects his teacher and asks a couple of questions and gets a phone number from them and gives it to me for me to call, man, you know what I've just done? I've taught that kid how to become self-sufficient to be able to make new friends and to be able to go out there and reach other people. Because a lot of people think that they can't do this because all these different reasons. The only reason you can't do it is, first of all, because maybe you don't know what to say. And the second thing is you're not confident. And all you got to do is practice. And once you get that practice and reps in, everything becomes easy. I mean, they say for you to be an expert at anything, you need to do 10,000 hours of it, right? And what do we have? We have time. What am I going to do? Stay at home and watch TV or waste my time on stupid stuff that doesn't make me any money or make me any better when I can improve myself, read a couple of books and learn a couple of things and go out there and help others. That's the beauty of life, man. I mean, if you can help others achieve their goals, you will be able to achieve your goals too. So that's what I do. I mean, just reading, learning, new version of myself. Excuse me.
God bless you, man.
Thank you.
Hey, God bless you. Salute, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, man, I think that's it.
Cool.
Just learning more and wanting to help others.
I love it. I believe that learning is the key. Then you got to turn the key, right? And I think turning the learning key is an equation that matches and marries with unlocking the door, right? So like you put the key in, that's learning, then you turn it. That's the action part, right? You have to have the bias for action because the doing piece is really where the learning comes into effect. And
and the saying, they say, knowledge is power. No, it's applied knowledge is power. What good is it if you know how to do something, but you don't do it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you got to apply yourself to be able to do it. And sometimes we think we can't, and that's our limiting beliefs.
That's right.
Sometimes it takes someone from the outside, not even in our circle of friends and family, someone that has no intentions or will gain nothing from you, or for you to do something to pour into you, for you to believe that you can do it. And then you go up, have the guts to go out there and do what you
That's
were
right.
afraid to do in the first place.
That word belief right there, you said it a few minutes ago. Maybe I was walking back 5 minutes when you started your recent thought process there. And you mentioned that you began to become, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but you began to become a believer of the business and started to go into it, right, with a different set of ideals of what it was going to take to accomplish this. I'm curious because now I want to intersect now I'm going to start to bring in the different parts of where I'm more curious about this, because we've touched on the kids and how you just helped the son go out, prospect and find a way to strike a conversation, prospect a teacher. The belief part, when you're Sia and you're not fully committed to the business yet, but your wife is doing it, correct? She's already in it. Yes. Were you supporting her from the perspective of, hey, I love you, do it, but you're not a believer in the business yet because of X, Y, or Z? Or how are you managing that part of your mentality where you're per se a 9-to-5er, right? Like let's just be honest there. And you're not yet transformed into a business thinker, but your wife's building a business. How are you connecting dots there? Are you just like, whatever, keep doing your business, and then someday you like buy into it because now you believe because you saw a check or something? Like, walk me through some of that, because I'm wildly curious about how you manage that part with, and I think this is a very applicable position of thought, because Sia, I believe, and I've seen this, I've traveled around the country, I've been in groups with hundreds of people, and I sit across the table from people that are married, that you have one partner that doesn't support the other partner, and I think it's a tragedy. It's almost like, well, why are you together if you're in opposition of what you want your life to look like? And I think to myself, you have a big problem to solve, right? Like, you need to figure out that and get on the same page first. A lot easier said than done. But how did that all operate for you with your wife while that's all happening? And what was it that ended up coming to life to shift there?
So I had a job. I was working at a radio station, a 9-to-5, and my wife was in mortgages and real estate. And in 2008, mortgages and real estate crashed. And in 2010, we got started. And in 2008, we had our daughter. 2009, we had our son. I went to an event where it was called A Whole New World. My brother-in-law had put this event together. It was his first event on his own from once he started his own company. And I went there and I saw people standing on stage talking about, entrepreneurship, having their own business, having their own time, making money. Some of them were making money. Some of them were saying they were making money, but I didn't know if it was for real. I saw people talking in broken English. And on the way home, my wife and I were like, man, if these people can achieve these goals and dreams that they have, and we live in the same country and we know more people and we have 2 kids, we got to do something. Like, we got to do something else. So my wife got started. Then she threw it on to me. She said, no, you do it, because she was afraid at first, right? Because we had kids. We had 2 kids under 2. And she was like, man, my kids. But then people in the company my brother-in-law started talking about, people with kids, they make excuses. They say they want things. And we're like, is he talking about us? But if the shoe fits, wear, right? Yeah. So we're like, you know what? No, I need to do more. So I started participating more. Anytime that I could participate in the business, I would. Because I made it a point, because I kind of realized people. So we went to marriage counseling before we got married. Sure. And the pastor said, Sia, how do you see a marriage? Do you see it as 50-50, or what do you see it? I said, well, it's 50-50. He said, this isn't going to work. It's 100-100. You can't give 50% and expect your wife to give 50%. Where's the other 50% going?
That's great.
So if you're not all in, you're not going to go on the same road. You're going to be traveling 2 different ways. And, we say in our business, we say the last appointment one has is the most important one. And the last appointment is the person you're sleeping with at night. So if that last appointment at night, because you're sleeping next to each other and you're talking about the day, if the last appointment is dragging you down and killing your dreams, and you have ambitions and goals and you want to do things, and he or she is killing you, you're not going to be successful unless you're very strong. And then you're able to, and then they say the worst thing you can do is try to change someone.
Right.
And try to change your spouse. And sometimes it doesn't happen. That's why people get divorced. Or someone buys into it and then they're like, okay, let's go. So I said, you know what? We have one bank account and we can either grow this account or I can stop this from growing. So if I can be there anytime I can, I will be there. So I would be there on Monday nights when I needed to be at the office. I was there on Tuesdays. I'd participate. I'd help with the office setup just to be around the people that were a little bit higher than me so I can learn from them. Because most of the things that you learn in the business are not learned, they're caught, not taught.
Mm-hmm.
You catch a lot of things, the way people say things or do things. So I would do that in the office and I'd be there on Saturdays. I'd help out. My wife would be like, go talk to people. And I was scared to talk to people. But then I said, you know what? If I want to make this thing work, I got to give it 100%.
Yeah.
Man, I did a whole bunch of stuff on the side just to be able to keep the wheels turning in the house until our business took off. Because as a man, you have to say, you know what? I got to go work.
That's right.
I got to make things work. And if it means I got to work on myself to learn, to give more to the business, then that's what I got to do. Because we both have the same bank account and we want to make that grow. And when I married my wife, I said, you know what? We're not going to talk about the D word. We're just going to improve ourselves. And if it means me improving, so be it. And I got to improve. And trust me, I've got a lot of improving to do. And my wife's helped me in that. But I figured that, you know what? We're in this together. We have 2 children. We want to be able to send them to school, give them the best opportunities. And praise the Lord, everything has been working in our favor. And man, I'm so blessed.
Yeah.
Even though I love Southern California, I'm so blessed that Gavin Newsom jacked it up and made me move out. Because if I had stayed there, my children will not have the same opportunities that they have right now. Like for my daughter to be able to be invited to go to Stanford for law class in the 9th grade, and then for her to be ambassador for the school that she is in right now, to be able to travel to Washington, D.C. twice this year.
Awesome, yeah. My
son playing soccer, being around all these high caliber soccer players. So, and if I had not gone all into the business and I hadn't gone into our family goal, I don't think we would have been together. Because I would have stayed small thinking and my wife's thinking kept growing. And I have to catch up. Or else we're not going to be on the same page. Sure. And that's how people grow apart. Yep. So she says, read a book. I say, I read 2. She reads 3 books a month. I try to read 3 books a month. So we're trying to always grow because we're in this together. We're trying to leave a legacy for our children. Not for one generation, but my goal is to leave 4 generations of wealth for my children. Yep. And that's what I want to do. Yeah. So, and I got to improve.
Of course. So, we all do, man. I mean, we're all doing that. Ideally, right? I wouldn't say we all are. That's an absolute, but we should be. The marriage counseling decision for you all, was that a saving the marriage discussion or decision, or was that going into this and trying to set a realistic expectation and get on the same page decision? Or maybe it had already been going on a lot of different times, because everybody has a different angle with counseling or therapy or what have you there. I'm very much involved in understanding this because I'm going to be getting married. I'm engaged. We have a son now. So that part of my life is very important. And I admire long, sustaining, successful relationships. You having 2 great kids. It's like, man, I can soak up knowledge and learn everything as I possibly could from you. So selfishly, I'm asking these questions because I think there's a reality there where it's you're talking about a complex set of things that all have to operate in coexistence, where it's marriage and it's business and it's parenting and it's this and it's that. And so I'm curious about that. Was that a saving the marriage thing? If we need to do this in order, if we're going to make this work, or was that like, hey, no, we're going and stepping ahead and being proactive?
So I met my wife, and 2 weeks after I met her, well, she's got her version of the story and I got my version, right? So
we're gonna have to get her on next. I want to hear her side of the story. There's always 2 sides. Got to get both sides. See ya. Come on now.
And then there's the truth, right?
Yeah.
No, she's right in a way, and I'm right. But so I met my wife at a TV station that I was working with. Okay, She's born in Iran. Her parents are Armenian. Her dad is Assyrian. Born in Iran, they speak Farsi. I was born in Iran. I speak Farsi. So we met at a TV station where I was working with my dad. She was interning there. She caught my eye. And so I would order lunch, and I'd always order lunch for her. And it was, oh, this is extra. This is for you. Okay.
Strategy.
So then there was a Christmas party, and I asked her if she was going to the Christmas party, and she asked me if I was. I said, I'll go if you go, but then she didn't answer. So I ended up going, and she was there. So I walk in, and I see my friends, and this is where her story is different from mine. I see my friends, and then I go talk to them, and then I see her later. She says she was sitting in front of me, and I didn't see her, but she was, I couldn't have missed her. Anyway, but then when we met, 2 weeks after that, I asked her to get married, which is kind of bold.
Wow.
But, I was in a situation in my life where, Manny, you go through life, and at one point you notice that, man, if you don't change your life and if you don't do something that's right, I mean, I was young and reckless and stupid, and I've done some crazy stuff. But I noticed that I needed to get on the right track. It was just timing. I wasn't born a Christian. I was born a Baha'i. I was in Iran. That was back then. But when I met her, I asked her to marry me. She said, "You're not Christian." I said, "Okay, well, we'll explore it." She said, "You don't need to do that for me. I don't want you to change your religion for me. You need to do it for yourself. That's a decision you need to make. So I don't think this is going to work." She broke up with me, basically.
Right.
And then we got back together. And then I said, okay, if we're going to do this, if we're going to get married, let's go talk to someone first. So the church that we wanted to go get married at, that's where the pastor said, "Hey, we're going to do some marriage counseling before I wed you guys. I need to talk to you guys," which was cool. So we didn't plan on it. It just happened.
Right.
And then when we met and talked, that's when that all happened. And it was great because I learned something new about her faith, and I put my old self behind. I say that I was a lost sheep, and she found me. And when we got married, she's like, "On Sundays, I'm going to church." I was like, "Okay, go to church." But then I was like, "Man, I want to be with her. I don't want her to go to church by herself. We're a family now."
Right.
So I went to church with her. And every Sunday I would go to church, and she likes to sit in the front row, and we sat in the front row. First it was the back row, then it moved up to the front row. I was like, okay. So we went, and then I met a guy there that was Iranian that was contributing into the church. And I started talking to him after church. And then after that is, when I said, you know what, and a couple of Bible stories like grabbed my heart, like Abraham taking him to the altar and telling his servant, "Hey, stay here, we'll be right back," and taking his only son up to the mountain to sacrifice him for the Lord. I'm like, man, can you imagine that, man? Can you I get goosebumps. Yeah. Man, I have a son. Do I believe in God that much that I'm gonna? He says, "Take your son up to the mountain and sacrifice him." I'm gonna take him. Go to the extreme of tying him down, taking the dagger out, and then a lamb comes by, says, "Sacrifice the lamb, not your son." Wow. I'm like, man, God loves me that much. And then there's just Jesus on the cross, "Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they're doing," And man, I'm like, bro, this is calling me, I'm done with my past. I want to walk this way now.
Yeah.
And then the best decision I made in my life, first marrying my wife, and then my walk with Christ. And I love it, man. I mean, I'm able to tell the stories. If people want to hear it, great. And I'm not trying to be a Bible banger and bang people's head.
Right.
I'm just telling you what I went through.
Sure.
I went through the rocky roads and things didn't work out. And I knew the only way I was going to go that way. I was in the entertainment business. I was in the drugs. I was in the drinking. I was in the girls. I did all that stuff. But at one point, you got to say, man, if you're 40 years old and you're still going to the club,
yeah.
there's something wrong.
Amen.
Unless you own the club,
yeah.
Unless you own, it's okay. But if you're going over there to try, that's not it, right? So that has been my thing. Where I had I had to do that, you know, and the marriage counseling helped. And then obviously, I love my family. I love my children. Uh, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife. Honestly, I think I would have died, overdosed or something, because I wasn't walking the right way.
Right.
And so having the right person next to you is very important.
That's beautiful.
And if you share the same goals and dreams,
Yeah.
and if your dreams don't excite you to want to live for the next day to be able to achieve them,
yeah,
then maybe you got to change your goals.
Recalculate.
Yeah.
Hey, man, being down in Southern California, I'm sure you spent many a days here in Vegas, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. I always joke. I said, man, you know, it's probably a pastime where we met each other, man, because I was, for a decade, I was the same way, brother. I mean, that was my job, man. I was taking people out, hosting them from across the world, all different parts of the globe. It was my job, promoting and hosting. And many a nights, basically every night, I was about as blitzed, high, and drunk as you can imagine on every drug imaginable. And I'm like, we probably met. We probably had some good times together, man. We forgot about the damn thing, and now here we are.
I think some of the casinos were built by me and you over there. You know, we invested in them.
That's
somehow.
right. That's exactly it, man. I got a little stone down in the corner over there with my name engraved in it and say, hey, here's for your contribution to my casino hotel. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you, right? Hey, man, God bless for that, right? I feel like that's, again, something we're connected on because I understand, right? So it's like, you know, deciding to get sober, even for me, going on almost 8 years now, will be next month, man. So, you know, biggest decision. That's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made right there. Now, that being said, I want to go to the parenting side of things because, as I said, I'm curious around that in the sense that nobody really knows what they're doing when they're parenting, right? Maybe you think differently. I'm just saying that from a, you know, there's books written on it. There's you know, nowadays it's been modernized. You can watch videos, you can learn from other people's experiences. But what have you found to be the effective, I don't want to say proper parenting strategy because who knows what proper even qualifies as, but what has been effective for you to raise two great young, obviously a young man and young woman as well? Like what has been the effectiveness of what you've applied and what you've learned now? And you know, because I think you said, what were the ages again? Was it
15 and 14.
15 and 14. Okay, so you get teenagers.
Yeah.
How do you give them the right, God, is the word principles and values and not spoil them and not treat them in a way where they have this sense of entitlement? And you know, this varies across the spectrum so widely because I was having a conversation yesterday and a guy that I'm working with was telling me that his ex-fiance hands everything out to their son and the kid does nothing to earn anything. And I'm like, oh man, that kid's he's been wronged, right? It's unfortunate. You know, he's got a spirit and a soul. Maybe there's hope, transformation there, but I'm very curious how you've applied yourself towards that idea of raising good kids and when that started and, you know, even from a young age, how you brought them into the world to create good, young contributors of society.
So my wife has a lot to do with this.
Okay.
She's definitely the one that does most of the. I mean, sometimes she says I have 3 children. You know, like I'm the 3rd child, right? But she's most important. Like we grew up. We brought them up in church, right? So the church has been there. We've been bringing up in church, and the principle and the values that we have around the house. Yes, we don't give things are earned in the house, not necessarily by doing crazy stuff, but you know, like keeping your room clean. Good. I say, as a child, I tell my son all the time, you want to play soccer? Great. I got to pay a club thousands of dollars for you to play soccer, right? I'll pay that gladly. But the only thing you need to do as a child is give me good grades.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You keep your grades good, I'll give you the world, right? You do what you got to do as a child is just go to school, get good grades, come back, and that's it. And you know, we tell them to read. They got to read a book. They always, every month they have to read a book and then tell us what they're doing, what the book was all about. So that's important.
Do you tell them? Do you direct them? Which I'm sorry to interject there, but I'm curious. Do you tell them what book to read, or what? Do you give them a direction on what to read? Because any book could be any book, right? Is it an entrepreneur book? Is it a money book? Is it a business book? Like, what is the actual practice there?
So my daughter read like, I don't know, 6 or 7 Shakespeare books. She likes reading that kind of stuff.
Right.
She likes that, you know. My son, you give him a Shakespeare book, he does like, he'll just stare at the page. He'll be on page 6 forever, right? It's got to be something that intrigues him, something that he likes. So we gave him the book, the Nike book, the Phil Knight book, I think it's called. Phil Knight is the name of the Nike book. He read that book. He likes that book. Stuff like that, like Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People. They read those books. The Energy Bus. They read that book. You know, Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah.
You know, reading that kind of stuff that stimulates his mind. He likes that kind of stuff. So we find out what they like, and then you feed it to them, right? And they'll tell you. And so that's very, very important. Making sure that they're not on their phones all the time, you know, and all that stuff. So we've been able to keep them off that limited. We take the phones away, and then we give it to them once they've done something. Once they earn it, they get their phones back. And controlling who their friends are. You know, it's kind of weird, but you know, my wife has access to their Snapchat, and they can't have a Facebook account. They don't have an Instagram. Their Snapchat, my wife checks who they talk to. So making sure who is around them, and they're very open. You know, if you open up a dialogue with your children and you talk to them and tell them that you care about them, you'd care about them more than anyone else in the world, that you love them the most, for them to be able to bring in. So we tell them, this is the saying we say, tell the truth, shame the devil. You tell me the truth, there's no consequences.
That's right.
I might direct you in another way, but if I catch you lying and I find out, you know what, then there's going to be consequences. And I'm not saying hitting them, but I'm just saying, you know, you're not going to have a lot of activities. Right. You're going to be sitting in your room all day, you know, not without any entertainment. So, but at a young age, teaching them, you know what, tell me the truth. Just be honest with me, you know, open up dialogue so they can be friends. Sometimes it gets to a point where they think they're too friendly. My son, now he's 14, he thinks he can bully me around. And I tell him, you know what, you mess with the bull, you're going to get the horn, you know. Sometimes when he's not expecting it, you know, I give him a little jab or something, you know, but we have fun. Like I was with my dad, you know, I want them to be friends with me, but know that I'm their father. So when I tell them something in a stern way, they know that look, you know, they know not to mess with that. So, and we've learned it from people in our lives, you know. I learned from my dad when he was around, my wife's father who's still around. He's instilled a lot in our children about faith, love, family, all that stuff. And then my brother-in-law, obviously, and you know, people around us. Like I said, everyone is your teacher. You learn from them, and you teach them to your kids. And then they can see it themselves. They're not you know, ignorant. They know. Right. They can tell what's right and what's wrong. You know.
Are you of the? I'm in my dad mode right now, and I'm thinking, I'm a believer in greatness, like you said, right? We're all made for something fantastic, and every day I get up, I'm looking at my son. I'm like, man, he's meant for something great, right? He's something great. And I sit here and catch myself, and I'm like, you know, I think about all the possibilities of what greatness is and what it looks like, and I keep saying to myself, you know, it's my job to help him identify what that is and try to figure it out in the best possible way. Did you ever catch yourself in a dilemma where you were trying to guide them into something that you wanted, and it was like, because you thought, and I think a lot of parents fall into this trap where it's like they want their kids to go that direction, where in this case, let's just use it as an example. It could be entrepreneurship, right? Because you all have your business and it's growing and it's building, and it's like, I want you to go do this because I'm dad, and like it's going to satisfy what I want. And if that is the case, I'm curious like how you've just processed that as a father, as a family, to identify, like you said, you got to go figure out what they like. You mentioned the Shakespeare for your daughter, and then for your son, it was like, that ain't interesting to me, right? So I do feel that there's a part of that, but going even a little deeper into the psyche as a father, or even your wife as the mother, have you all had those moments where you looked at it, you're like, whoa, we're trying too much to make them what we want them to be? Or how are you navigating that sense of, we want them to do amazing things, but it's not for us, it's for them, and helping them find out what that is. I'm very curious what that looks like on your side.
So with my daughter, academically, well, growing up, she did well in sports. Like I coached little soccer and they would play. My son would kill it. My daughter did well, but my son like gravitated towards soccer. I didn't push him. He loves soccer and he wants to be a soccer player. So he wants to play for Barcelona.
Oh,
Okay.
that's awesome.
So that's that. But my daughter, I got her into some sports, like I got her into karate, and she did really well. And the teacher and instructor was like, "Oh man, we can have her do the kata and do all this stuff and showing and with travel." And my daughter started saying, "I don't like it. I don't want it." I stopped. She stopped doing it. So I was like, "Are you afraid of competing? What's wrong with it? You got to compete. You got to be in sports." And then I noticed that she didn't want to do anything with sports. I was like, "Okay." So she got into high school. Into high school, she did very well academically. She's doing very well. And I said, Grace, you got to do something in sports because you're doing all this stuff academically. And my wife was like, yeah, it's all you. But when colleges look, they want to see if you're able to work with other people. Are you able to communicate as a team, work together? So you got to do a team sport. I said, volleyball, go to volleyball, try volleyball. She's like, Dad, stop. So what happened is her friend is on the swim team and water polo team. And apparently they had a swim team tryouts. And my daughter's like, I want to be on the swim team. I was like, okay, sure. So when I was forcing it, she was resisting. But when I backed off on it and let her choose something, she chose swimming. And she's killing it. She's like swimming in the regional states or whatever it is. She's competing this Friday. And she's doing well in it because her friend asked her to do it or told her to do it. And now she wants to go to water polo. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a tough sport, but if you can do it and you want it, go ahead and do it. So pushing them, sometimes they resist, but if you just let them be and have the right friends around them, then they'll be able to choose what they want to do. Now, my son, on the other hand, he's doing well in school, but his soccer is a lot better and he gravitates towards that. So I don't try to force it. I let them choose. Like I exposed them to different sports, and he went towards soccer. Like last summer, he said, "I want to play baseball." I was like, "Okay, let's take you to baseball practice, batting practice. Let's go." He's got a heck of a swing. He's got a really good arm. Then he said, "I want to play football." I said, "Yeah, you know what? The concussion rates and stuff like that. Let's
My
stick to
fiance
soccer."
is the same, by the way. My fiance is like, yeah, we let him play some sports, but that football thing, I'm like, well, we got to, but his name's Lincoln Brady. You do realize we named him after Tom Brady, right? The middle name. So he could come out, though, he could come out the next, you know what, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, that's funny you said that, though. That's funny.
Yeah.
My fiance.
But you let them choose, and they'll tell you what they like and they don't like, So that's the way we've done it. And so we don't push it because when you push, they resist. But when there's peer pressure, that's why you want the right peers around them. The positive peer pressure, I'm okay with. The negative peer pressure, I'm not okay with.
Yeah.
So
how did you control that? I know you said your wife is active in being involved in who they hang around with, right? That's obviously more importantly when you're younger, clearly, right? Because they're so malleable at that young age. Is that a qualification that you and your wife go through and say, hey, is this kid's parents, are they good? Are they stewards of having good principle? Are they good contributors of society? Do they have great jobs? Are they in business? Like, are they smoking cigarettes every day? Do you go as deep as that to figure out who the kid is, to and looking up the hierarchy of the parenting level, or what does that actually look like? Because I'm very curious about how you do that.
Because our children are with their children for about 8 hours a day at the school, we need to know who they are. Obviously, I need to know who these parents are, because I don't want them to be some, everybody's different. I get it, but I want to be able to control what my children see. And if they see the parents and because they're going to come and do the same. So yeah, we try to meet the parents to know who they are, have lunch with them. We're blessed to be able to send them to a private school. So even though it's a private school. There's still some kids that are go rogue, but
Sure.
we try to meet their parents, hang out with them, ask them, well, what do their parents do? Uh, have you met them? We're not the type of family where we let our children go sleep over anybody's house.
Hmm.
That's just not what we do.
Right.
I did it when I was younger. It's kind of weird because my growing up was different from my wife's growing up, but I did it because I went with my cousins. I have 14 cousins, so we'd have sleepovers. It would
Sure.
be okay. But my wife, they didn't have many cousins, and their parents didn't want them to go anybody's house. So we don't let that happen either. If they want to come over, great. Nobody sleeps over. But we like to know their parents. We like to know them. We go and introduce ourselves to them, so they'll know who we are.
Right.
And like I'm involved in a Bible study. My son asked this girl to homecoming, and it just happens to be one of the guys I go to Bible study with. The
That's
guy's
cool.
like, "Hey, your son called me." I said, "Yeah, I know. He's gonna come and ask you." He jumped the gun. He asked your daughter first, but now he's gonna come and ask you. So I want to put him in the situation where,
Mm-hmm.
hey, man, you got to go ask that girl's dad to go to to homecoming, even though they're going as friends.
Mm-hmm.
I want him to learn at a very young age, because my wife says a great thing. He says, we're raising someone's husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be
Mm.
someone's husband. So he's
That's
got to
beautiful.
learn
Mm-hmm.
to have the respect to go and ask this young girl's dad to take this girl to the homecoming.
Right.
And it's going to be weird for him. He's already like dreading it and like feeling weird about it. He's anxious, like, Dad, I don't want to go to homecoming. I'm like, no, man, you messed up. You already asked. You can't say no. You
Can't
got to
back
go
out
do
now.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go today, this afternoon, and tell the guy, that they're going to go out as friends. Nothing more, just friends. So, learning and knowing them, it makes a difference, obviously. And unfortunately, my situation is different. Not a lot of people have the opportunity to be able to send their kids to a private school, to be able to have the time to like pick up and go to an event where they have in school, to see other parents. Like my daughter this morning, she was nominated for a homecoming court
That's awesome.
in the 10th grade.
That's
So
amazing.
in the morning, at 9 o'clock in the morning, they had in their chapel, they had an event, and we were able to go there. And the parents that were there were the parents that had their children in either as the king and queen, or in the court. So we got to meet them as well. So not a lot of people have that opportunity to do that, but if they make the effort, I'm sure they can find out who these parents are.
Sure.
And they have to make the effort to want to meet them, because
Sure.
not everybody's thinking the same way.
Of course.
If you want to be effective in your children's lives, you have to be in the children's lives.
Yes. Yes.
And be
And
able
understand.
to have the access to do it.
Yeah, no different as if you were a leader of a company and you've got employees, like you got to go and invest time to get to understand who they are, what they're about, what moves them, and really care about them, right? And go to that extreme where it's not
definitely.
you're not just another digit on a sheet.
Or like
right?
you named your son Lincoln,
Uh-huh.
right? Lincoln would go into the battlefield to see what's happening in the battlefield so he can tell his generals what to do.
Yeah.
He was actively going there. He wasn't standing in the back saying, report to me.
Yeah.
He'd go there, right?
Exactly.
So if you want to be involved in your children's lives to have an effective, you have to be there to be able to meet their parents as well. So you have to make the
Now, if you come across a bad apple in that scenario, are you going back to the kids and saying, hey, like, look, and this is, I'm imagining it may have happened. Maybe you have a story like this, but I can't imagine everybody's perfect. And some are going to be red flags, and you're going to be like, hey, kid, son, daughter, it's like, listen, I don't know if we should be hanging out with these people. Is that what it's like? Are you actually going back and saying you can't be friends with them? What's the actual delivery of that?
So it's funny. This is going to sound spooky and weird.
But, no, please. But this is the thought is, like, these are real scenarios, right? I mean, real people go through real things like this, and these are moments where you have to confront the thing that's in front of you, and that this is a philosophy that you have that could work for somebody. And I really, truly believe that. That's the whole idea of what we do here. It's like, hey, let's share ideas, perspectives, unique angles of how we do things, and maybe somebody that's listening can say, I never tried that before. I'll try that this way. Let's see if that works, right? So please continue before I go too much.
So we do talk to them about, look, this child is getting into trouble. You're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. You hang around with the bad kids, you're going to be one of them. You're going to get labeled. You want to be labeled as a bad kid as a ninth grader? You got 3 more years in this school. You're building your reputation. You want to hang around with people that are doers or people that are getting into trouble. You want to be with the doers, good guys, involved in sports. That's what you want. This kid is not a good kid. Apparently, he's getting into trouble. And if you're hanging around him, you're going to be guilty by association. I don't care if you did it or not. I believe you if you tell me the truth, but the school's not going to believe it. They're going to say you were there. So you're guilty, right? So what we do is we say, you know what? My wife and I, we get together and we pray for children, right? We pray for them or their families. So like there was this one kid that was on his soccer team that was bullying him on the soccer field and talking a lot of trash. He was a good kid, but he was just bullying him. And my son was new to the team, so maybe he was hazing him. I don't know. So we prayed. We're like, hey, you know what, God? We pray that you find a better club for this child to be able to go to so he can be out of this club so he can not have an effect on my child. So we pray for their family to be able to have a better opportunity, business-wise, life-wise, for them to be able to find a better opportunity, for them to be able to move away. And I tell you, Manny, it happened. It happened in 2 months. The father got an offer to move to Tampa, and they moved to Tampa. So the kid was out of that team.
Wow.
Another situation, we had a neighbor moved in. God bless them. They moved in and they were having a good time. They were me, like 25 years ago. Nowadays, smoking weed is like
still not a good habit.
Yeah. They smoke weed.
Yeah.
But when you're walking to your house and you smell it on the street, you're like, man, do I live by a dispensary? What's going on right here, right? Are they growing things? So these people moved in and we're like, oh, no, we can't have this. Because we leave our children at home sometimes and we go for an errand and we come back. Not that people that smoke weed are bad people. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But started praying, God, please remove these people from this place. Find a better place for them. Give them a better opportunity. Have something better come up their way so they can, go and explore life and have better opportunities. A month later, they moved out. So it's like you pray for what you want, not for what you don't want, right?
Yes.
Pray for I want these people to be blessed. I want them to be moved out of this situation. God, work your ways, do what you do, give them a better opportunity, and that's what we do. And honestly, it's helped. It really has. And then we have the conversations. Like I said, you know what? This kid's not good. If he's talking about, vaping and doing all this stuff, is that what you want to do? You say you want to play for Barcelona? Really? If you vape right now, how is that going to get you ahead in life? It's just going to put you back. If they find out, you're going to get kicked out. And then we're paying all this money for school. How does that make you feel? They're like, oh, well, that would make me feel bad. How would it look to others? Not that it matters what others think, but, unfortunately, we judge people by their looks and by what they do. But, so we give them we tell them what the consequences would be to be hanging around someone bad and where they want to be. Where do you want to be in life? Do you want to be moving up or do you want to be moving down? And then they make the right decisions, That's what we do.
Yeah, and if you've probably casted a good enough vision for them and helped them as the leader, the father, the mother, showing them a better quality of life and continue to show that as this is what's possible, then they'll know the difference, right? They'll not just act or see through the lens of, what it is in that scenario where it's, making bad decisions. No, they know the difference between good and bad, right? They clearly see the beautiful part of what's on the horizon.
Yeah. You give them a direction. Like, it's funny you say that, and I don't want to talk too much, but so my wife in the beginning of the year,
you're the one that's supposed to be talking. I'm not supposed to. Hey, man, you're on my show. I'm the one interviewing you, brother. You can talk as much as you want.
I appreciate it. So my wife, what she did was she got this ribbon for them this beginning of the year, the school year. One said Homecoming Queen and the other one said Homecoming King. And they pinned it onto their wall next to their vision board, right? And like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, my daughter was nominated to be in the Homecoming, what do they call it? the
Court.
group of homecoming,
Homecoming
yeah,
court.
court, yeah,
Yeah.
homecoming court. So, and my daughter was like, "Wow, Dad, you see, it happened." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it is. You put your vision on the
Yeah.
wall, on the board, what you want to do this year, what you want to achieve, and you work towards it, and you don't let negative things or bad things hold you back, and you'll be able to achieve it."
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's amazing what your mind can do when you
Yeah.
focus on something that is good with good
So
intentions, and your
true.
work ethic as well. So.
Absolutely. I joke because you said, hey, I prayed for two different people to find a better opportunity, the soccer guy and then the neighbor. I said, man, people listening right now are going to start calling you up and ask you to pray for them, man. Start sending you some side, man. You can have another business
It's not me,
coming
man.
down the pipeline, man. I know, but you're doing it and it's working. So people be like, man, this guy prayed for some people and they went out and got better opportunities. You better start praying for me. It's going to be a good life over here. I'm calling Sia.
You got to ask for the good things that you want in life,
Oh, yeah.
and you got to look for it.
Absolutely, man.
Opportunities are all around us,
Of course.
but we just pass them up. Sometimes we overthink things and think, "Oh, that's a scam. That guy just stole money. This guy did that. That guy." No, people get to places by doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
People are afraid of working nowadays. They're afraid to do that thing that involves hard work. And maybe it is you have to read 40 books about entrepreneurship for you to change your language, to be able to speak more positively, to be able to make friends easier, to become a good influence to people. So you can set the standard for people for them to want to reach to your standard instead of you lowering your standards.
Yeah.
You keep raising the standard and they keep wanting to catch up to you. That's when that gap is caught up to, and then everybody say the rising tide lifts all ships. Why don't we all learn to become better as human beings instead of being bad people and confusing people like they're doing around in the US now, and dividing people? Instead of, if we all come and unite and we go to a common goal where it's like, let's do great things, do good things for people, and good things will come to you. It's just the law of the universe. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you focus on the bad things will happen. Yeah. But if you keep your eyes off the bad and you keep focusing on the future, I say, it's funny because when you drive a car, your windshield is big.
Yeah.
But your rear view mirror is really small.
Yeah. Yep.
It's for you to look in the past to remember what you've gone through, but keep the vision of what's good and coming in the future.
That's right.
That's what you got to focus on.
Amen.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, are focusing on the bad things that they have and not focusing on the blessings that they have and how fortunate they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might not be a millionaire, but dude, you still got a job, and you still have. And if you don't like your job, there's other opportunities for you to explore, to do something after 5, to be able to learn something so you can earn more money. Yeah. But are you willing to learn something new as an older person or matured person to be able to get to where you want to get? Because a lot of people die at the age of 21 because they just forget about dreaming. They're like, I'm okay, I got a job, it's all right. And then 40 years goes by, they still got the same job, no life, no house, living the average life. Who wants to be average when you can be extraordinary in America, especially?
Yeah, I think the words "I'm good" are the worst sellout on planet Earth. I remember talking about this maybe a month and a half ago ish, when it's like, people are, I'm great where I'm at. Like, really? That's all you're giving yourself? You're not allowing yourself to discover more of what you have from a capacity standpoint? Like, you've reached your max capacity? Dude, no way. No way. So whenever somebody says like, oh, I'm great where I'm at, I'm like, you've quit. And you just don't want to admit that you've quit on yourself or that you've given up on yourself, right? And hopefully something triggers you to want to go, you know what? There is a lot more inside of me. There is this grand event that's happening out in the future, but am I willing to go do what it takes to make sure that I get closer to that and go in that direction of that destination? So I couldn't agree with you more on that, man. I'm glad we're in parallel there. Listen, man, we time is flying. My God, look, this is blink, and it's an hour and 20 already, man. So look, I know I said I wanted to talk more about the business and the entrepreneur side of things, and I think we indirectly spoke around some of that. You were able to very much so share a lot of great wisdom around sort of the thought processes and the angles of, how all this is interconnected between the kids and the family and the wife and the son. I think that it all matters because it all connects at some degree. And so before we final this thing up and land this plane, Would there be anything from an entrepreneurial perspective? And, we can always come back and jam for round two, man. I always set people up that way on these. I always tell them when they're ready, we do round two, so they almost can't get out of it because they're on camera right now, right? So I hooked you in. But from an entrepreneurial word or voice, is there anything left that you would like to share that we didn't touch on? And I know I took it in more of a different direction because, again, some curious thoughts around where life lands for you in these certain areas based on sort of how I'm seeing it and what I think would also help other people based on some more conversations I've had externally around with what are some challenges out there in the world. So any final thoughts on words on entrepreneurship or business that you have? And then, lastly, I'll ask you a question about what's behind me. And then obviously what, if anything, you're promoting or you want people to come find you at so you can do more of your great things you're doing, my man.
I believe that America was built on entrepreneurship. When the settlers came here, and I don't want to get into they stole the land from stop. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm saying when people came to America, the guy put a couple of sticks here and there and marked his land, said, "This is my territory." Got a couple of cows, started milking the cows, started selling the milk, started becoming a business owner, made his own business, made his own money. 90% of people were entrepreneurs. 10% worked for someone, right? Now, when you look at it in 2023, you have 10% people that have businesses and 90% of people are working. And they're working themselves to death and they're not getting anywhere. And they strive to have a raise. I got a raise. I worked for a corporate place. They gave me a 3% raise. They took it back. They gave me a 10%. They took it back. Inflation is growing. Once you start noticing how much you're really worth, you'll stop taking a paycheck. But unfortunately, people settle for what the marketplace says they're worth or what their boss says they're worth, and they believe that. And they live a long time, and they do the same thing over and over again because they think they're good. And like you said, I think good is the enemy of great. When you can have great, why would you want to be good? So if there's an opportunity that comes your way and you can see yourself doing it and you're doing good for families and friends, why not do it? I mean, you can either be a blessing to people or you could be a burden. And I want to be a blessing to people. I want to be able to teach other people how to do this business that I'm doing, the entrepreneurship way, to be able to go out there and spread the word. I find it to be financial ministry because a lot of people are lacking income. They don't have a spending problem. They have an income problem. And if your job is not giving you enough income for you to be able to live the lifestyle that you want, why not be able to learn something so you can go earn more money doing something else while you're still working 9 to 5 until you're able to make enough money to be able to fire your boss or to make up for the income that you're making right now.
Amen.
The sales world is uncapped. You're not capped at what you can make in sales. But a lot of people think they're not good at sales, but they're really good at selling themselves on not being good at sales. You get that?
Absolutely.
So we're all good salesmen.
That's right.
But we're selling the wrong thing to ourselves. Right? If you go out there and learn, and there's different ways where you can make money and earn money, not because we don't make money, we earn money by the amount of knowledge we bring to people. If you can learn it and you can earn it, you're doing your family a disservice by not you doing it. You're not living your full potential. And you have one life to live. Why not live it to the fullest and do something that you can impact generations to come? So that's why I got started with this business. That's why I'm doing this business. That's why I want people to learn what I'm doing so they can go out there and help other family members and, to become king and queen makers so we can all grow. So because what's happening right now, Manny, is the school system is confusing kids. They're not teaching them about finances. They're not teaching them about money. They're teaching them all the stuff that confuses people and divides people. So if they don't teach young children about finances, it's simply because they want people to become leaners on the government and not leaders in their community. Because once people have known the knowledge that they know, that the wealthy know, then they can apply it in their lives. They can be wealthy as well. And then everybody grows.
Amazing.
So what I do is I educate the masses so they can have success, so they can live for a brighter future. That's what I do.
That's it, man.
And you can follow me on Instagram. It's my first name, Siamak TKB. TKB stands for my company is called the Kingdom Builders. We build on the kingdom of God, faith, family, business. That's the way we do things.
Beautiful, man. You're doing it, brother. I'm super grateful for our interaction here, the times we spent. I'm hoping you got a good swig out of those cigars that you took back with you from Vegas, man.
Appreciate it.
It's been an honor watching you do what you do. You've been even relentless on me and your proactivity to share what you're doing and how it works. And you've been relentless in that matter. And I respect that, man. I'm like, I like this guy, man. This guy is about his business. So
I appreciate it.
Keep up the
because I know what we can do together. We can impact so many people's lives with our background and what we know now. And if I had known this stuff 10 years ago, man,
absolutely,
game over.
Absolutely, you know? Yeah. Now we're going to shorten the curve for everybody else, right? Make sure they get out ahead of it. So
yeah, I appreciate you, Manny. Thanks for reaching back and
of course,
not giving up as well. So
that ain't in the options, man. The giving up is not part of I don't even know how to write those words or what they spell out as. I just know how to say them, if you know what I mean. Hey, man, before we jet, one last question, brother. What does always on the grow mean to you?
Always on the grow mean to me? Like I said, man, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you got to improve as technology improves, as people change. You got to keep growing because, like, if you look at a tree will still stand even if it's dead. The roots are there, and the tree is there. There's no leaves, but it's still there. So growing is very important. You have to grow, and you got to teach other people what you've learned, so they can grow faster, so they can learn faster, so they can be able to do better things in life. If more people focus on building other people, I think everybody, the community, the world will be a much better place.
Yeah, man.
You know, so.
Amen. By the way, that visual of the tree is fantastic. And now I'm going to go rework that one. I'm like, okay, so now you grow a tree. It's got its roots. How does that apply? That's how my mind works, right? So thank you.
They say, you know, you want to sit under a tree. When is a good time to plant a tree? It depends on when you want to sit under it. If you want to sit under it in 20 years, you got to plant it now, right? So planting the seed is very important. When you do it is very important.
Fantastic, man. Well, God bless, man. Again, keep up what you're doing, brother. Appreciate you for being on the Always on the Grow show. And I'm going to reel you in for round number 2, man, so we can keep expanding on all of these things. And until we meet in person again, I know we're connected and communicating otherwise. So keep up the good work, brother. God bless you and your family. Love you, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Thanks, man. God bless.
You too, man.